Hi everyone, I'm Lucy from Sew Essential and I'm here today to share my latest make with you. So everything I talk about today is available on our lovely website and you'll find links to the products I mention on our website below. And if you like what you see today, please like and subscribe because every Friday I bring you a video packed full of sewing goodness. And if you can't wait a whole week, do jump on and check out our other social channels as well. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and Pinterest. So let's get started with what I've been making. So I wanted a nice, I'm really into ditzy prints at the moment, they're everywhere, they're super fashionable and contemporary, and I wanted a nice dress that I could wear day to day and feel comfortable in, but also dress up to go out for meals and things like that. So I'm finding I'm wearing more and more dresses. The more sort of long sleeve dresses I make, the more wear I'm getting out of them as the winter draws in. So I decided to make New Look 6682 in this beautiful Moroccan crepe. It's 100% viscose and it's a Moroccan crepe. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I love all the colours in this fabric, they're so pretty, and I love the ditzy print. The pattern I absolutely adore as well. So it's got this cute little pleated turtleneck. I do have an obsession with turtlenecks. I counted in my wardrobe the other day and I've got about 9. I'm in the middle of making another one at the moment, so maybe I've got a bit of a problem, but I'm okay with that. So it's got this cute little pleated turtleneck which is fastened at the back with 2 buttons. It's got a concealed zip down the back, and then it's got a bit of a curved waistline. It sort of curves up into the centre and it's got gathers here and gathers at the back in the same place. So that just gives a nice little feature and a nice bit of shape to the bodice. And then the sleeves are sort of go into a puff at the end. They're like a bishop sleeve, I suppose, not a massively exaggerated one. So they come wide at the end and then they're gathered into a deep cuff, which is fastened again with 2 buttons and button loops. I always like cuffs on things and I love that whole voluminous sleeve look. So I love that about it. And then the skirt, I really love the shape of the skirt. So it's an A-line and on the pattern it's supposed to be a midi length, but I chose to shorten it quite considerably because I wanted to wear the dress with black tights, as you can see, and I just feel that black tights, obviously if I wear those with a midi length, it can just shorten my legs and I don't feel comfortable wearing flat boots with it, which I probably will want to do with this. So I decided to go a lot shorter. I shortened it by about 6.5 inches in the end. I did it incrementally in stages, being really careful to measure accurately, but I also let the fabric hang, and I'll talk to you more about that because that's really, really important. But as you can see, the fabric is beautifully lightweight and floaty. It just works so well for this skirt, and actually I was really gutted to have to shorten it because the midi length was so beautiful and it worked so brilliantly in this fabric. It's got almost like a sort of fluted effect on the hem because of the way the fabric hangs so beautifully. So I think I'd be keen to make this again in the longer length for the spring, where I could wear clear tights rather than wearing the black tights. But yeah, I'm really, really pleased with this pattern. It was a lot of fun to make. I'll talk to you about the construction in a minute. The fabric it's not 100% opaque, but because it's dark and it's got the ditzy prints and I'm wearing it with black tights, it's absolutely fine. So just to bear that in mind, it's not 100% opaque. And also the other thing I wanted to say is, if you're not as into ditzy prints, you know, just look at and imagine a blouse in this fabric as well, with a pair of plain trousers or a skirt or jeans. If you just want a nod to that trend rather than having a whole dress in it, you could go for that option as well. But it just works beautifully. It's so floaty and feminine and lovely. I just absolutely love it. I'm really, really pleased with it. I've already worn it. I wore it out for a meal on Sunday. And I wore it with knee-high boots to dress it up a bit, so thick black tights and then my knee-high boots with a block heel. But then equally I can wear it with little flat boots as well. So yeah, that's what I've made. It was a really enjoyable make. So I'll just tell you a bit about the pattern first. So it runs in sizes 6 to 18. So the 6 is a 30.5 bust, 23 waist, 32.5 hip. And the 18 is a 40 bust, 32 waist and 42 hip. I made a 12 and graded out to a 14 at the waist and hips, which is what I usually do. However, I ended up taking the bodice in really quite considerably because it's got these gathers here and it's supposed to be sort of a fairly loose fitting bodice. I just felt it was a bit big around here, so I did end up taking that in quite considerably at the side. But there's an option for the option I've made with the turtleneck and the long sleeves for winter, but then there's also just a simple crew neck version with a wide sort of almost flutter sleeve for the spring and summer, and 2 different lengths, the sort of midi length, and then I actually made the shorter length and that was quite long and ended up shortening it considerably. But a really lovely pattern, lots and lots of fun to make. Fabric was perfect for it. The fabric pressed beautifully as well. That's the other thing I need to say about it. I really got lovely crisp edges on my cuffs. As you can see there, you know, it's one of those fabrics like the corners are really nice and sharp, if you can see that there, that it was a joy to press and to work with. Because it's a Moroccan crepe, it's some viscose fabrics, like the green one that I made a blouse in recently. They're like a silky feel, a soft feel. They're more like a spun rayon, as they used to be known. But this viscose fabric, it's a Moroccan crepe, so it does feel more like a crepe. It's almost got like a slubby sort of texture to it. So it does feel and behave more like a crepe. So just to bear that in mind. So sizing and adjustments, I've already said I made a 12, graded to a 14 at the hips and waist, and then ended up actually taking in quite considerably at the side seams on the bodice. And the only other adjustment I made was shortening the skirt, as I mentioned. But what I will say as well about this fabric is I let the dress hang for a good few days, and thank goodness I did, because it did really drop. Because it's an A-line skirt, the side seams are on the bias, so that means that the fabric really did drop, and I ended up taking a large amount off the side seams and tapering round to the front and the back. The way I levelled the skirt, levelled the hem, was I was lucky I got Angela, my mother-in-law, and also Irena helped me, who works here. I stood in the dress after I'd let it drop for a few days, and they got a metre stick and measured up from the floor and just marked the level hem for me, so I was able to go away and do that. We've also got hem marker tools on the website. I'll try and remember to pop a link below. So if you haven't got a friend that can help you, if you've got a dress form, you could put the dress on a dress form, and then you could use one of our hem marker tools to mark a level hem. Another little tip as well that Irena gave me is if you are using a dress form, it can be quite useful to put the dress form on the table and then measure from the table up, because it just means you're not crawling around on the floor, so that's quite a good little tip. But yeah, so that's the pattern and the fabric, the sizing and the adjustments. I always make a forward shoulder and high round back adjustment to my patterns as well. All of those details are on our website. The tutorials are available for those on our YouTube channel, sorry, if you're interested. Construction wise, lots and lots of lovely details to talk about. So firstly, the collar, the pleated collar. Somebody said that they thought that this looked quite complicated, so it wasn't actually complicated, and I just thought I'll just show you the pattern piece and talk you through that so you can see how that bit works. So I just thought I'd show you the pattern piece for the pleated turtleneck. So you can see I've pleated it there. It's literally just a rectangle which has got dotted and solid lines along the length of it, and you literally just pleated it in the normal way. So you folded along the solid line. I'll just open it up so you can see that there. you folded along the solid line and joined that with the dotted line in the usual way on the fabric, and you did the same again with the next pleat, and then you just tacked those in place to secure. So you ended up with a piece of a rectangle of fabric that had got 2 pleats sewn into it like so. Tacked those in place, and then you attached it to the neckline in the usual way. So you sewed with a 5/8 inch along here, right sides together with the neckline of the bodice of the dress. And then once that was attached, there's an under collar piece which you put right sides together with it and stitched around the edges. So it really was nice, simple construction, but a lot of fun to make. And someone just asked about this. They said they thought it looked complicated when I shared it on Instagram. So I thought I'd just show you. It wasn't complicated at all, but it was a lot of fun to sew. Okay, so hopefully that's helped you to see that that was actually a really straightforward process doing the collar. Just in hindsight, I probably would have been more pedantic about the pleats at the end of the collar where it was matching up at the back, because I don't think I was quite spot on there. So the pleats I don't think matched up absolutely perfectly. I mean, it's good enough, you know, and it does look good, and it's at the back as well. And but yeah, that's just a little tip. If I made it again, I'd be really careful about the ends because your collar meets at the back. The cuffs were fun to make, and just so you know, they're fastened with a button and a button loop, and I decided to make my button loops on my overlocker. So if you sew a 3-thread rolled hem and run a chain of stitches off, you can then use that chain of stitches as button loops instead of hand sewing button loops. So that was a good little tip that I used there. The gathers, I always do 3 lines of stitching for my gathers because it just helps me to get them more even, so I like to do that. Putting a zip into very drapey viscose fabric as well, just a little tip there. I always like to use some interfacing on the seam allowances just to make sure everything's nice and sturdy when I put the zip in. But putting the zip in on this dress was actually really easy thanks to the turtleneck, because you put the zip in and you don't have to worry about moving your zip tapes out of the way at the top or getting the positioning just right, because your zip tapes can actually get sewn into the collar anyway, and they're going to just stay straight upright in that collar. So that was a nice part of the construction as well. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk to you about as well with the construction was sewing the sleeve vent. So I've done a little step-by-step tutorial for these, which I'm hoping to release on Instagram. But they were a lot of fun, but sometimes I could imagine how somebody who wasn't as experienced at sewing might get a little bit confused by them. But a sleeve vent is where you've got an opening in the sleeve and then you just finish it with a little strip of fabric. So do look out on Instagram, because I'm hoping to share a reel where I show you how to make one of those step by step. But they were a nice, fun, interesting little bit to sew as well. So it's very sort of simple dress in terms of the bodice and the skirt are very simple, but then it's got these fun little details like the cuffs and the collar and the sleeve vents to just make it that little bit more interesting and a little bit more of a challenge. So that was all a lot of fun. And then you'll have just noticed that I'm wearing, because obviously this is a lightweight fabric, and I think at the moment, you know, the fashion very much is, there's lots of these sorts of dresses about, these ditzy prints in woven fabrics. That, you know, it really is very fashionable at the moment, but in the winter here in the UK it can get quite cold. But that's the great thing again about a high neck like this. I'm actually wearing a thermal long sleeve top underneath it, then I've got my black tights on, and then you can even go one step further and add another layer if you want to and get a completely different look, which is very fashionable at the moment as well. So I've got this chunky knit with a turtleneck, of course, to continue my obsession. but I can put this on over the top if I want to, and I've got that look as well, which is very fashionable at the moment, and I see in all my favourite shops all the time, the chunky knit with the floaty skirt, so you can just see, and I could wear that with chunky boots and feel very contemporary but have a nice little bit of colour and fun in my wardrobe for winter, even though it's getting colder. So just some ideas for styling there as well. I love these pretty feminine floral prints as well with a leather jacket. That's another favourite look of mine. I'm sure lots of you will know if you've been watching our videos for a while. So yeah, so all in all, absolutely delighted with this dress. Think I'm going to be wearing it a hell of a lot this winter. Really enjoyed making it, a very fun project, and definitely a pattern that I'll be keeping in my stash for the long haul. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that today. As always, just remember everything I mentioned is linked below, and if you like what you see, please like and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.